Welcome to Fuel Your Drive. Welcome to Fuel Your Drive. I am your host, Josh Shore. Guys, we have an unbelievable episode in store for today. I'm really excited about it. And I want to, give you a little insight before we get started today. So our guest today it's got a great story. And he's going to touch on it from $500 in a frat kitchen to a global franchise. And obviously, as you know, I am in the franchising world as well. So I was very excited to get today's guest on, but I don't want to give it all away. I want you to hear from him. So we are on today with Matt Friedman, who was the co-founder of Wing Zone. He actually shared some great information before, getting this on the recording that he's now taking another position, which we will touch on. But let's get right into it. Matt, welcome to Fuel Your Drive. Super excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Josh. I'm a big fan of yours. Congrats on your success. And I'm excited to share with your audience and listeners a little bit of my story and maybe a few key nuggets of information that they can take away from today.
Good. Well, we want the nuggets. We want all the nuggets. And I'm super excited because, I started this podcast 7 years ago. And it's funny, my first guest was another franchise pro, my good friend Brian Scudamore, the founder and CEO of 100 Got Junk and O2E Extraordinary Brands.
He was probably on his yacht somewhere in the Caribbean, right?
Yeah, well, he was the first guest, and I said something to him. I said, and he always loves this about me. I said, Brian, this is going to be number one day, this show. And he's like, Josh, I love that about you. And there's no doubts. And today I got the update. We're actually ranked number 52 in the top 200 out of 7 million podcasts. So this is going to get a lot of traction, which is great. And, I just talk about this all the time. We're going to touch on this too, but people don't realize the power of just being consistent and having that discipline. It's just, most people just don't have that. And it's something I touch on all the time, but we're going to get into that. But let's start, open up, tell us about the $500. Tell us about the frat house. And I want the good. I want the bad. We want it all because I want people to really understand, because business and entrepreneurship, and even from the franchisee side, like, I'm very transparent about it, and I'm sure you are as well, but like, people don't understand that business is easy to say. It's not easy to do. And I don't even care if you're in a franchise model. You want to be a top performer, you got to tell what top performers do. But let's get into it and let's go.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I want to just share with you and the audience that I hope my message and story tells people that you don't need to be a millionaire or have millions of dollars in the bank to start a business. You really need passion. You need to understand your customer base. And you really got to have just this fire inside of you that, you believe in what it is. I also share in my book, which we'll talk a little bit about, From Frat House to Franchising, the importance of surrounding yourself with people that believe in you, whether that's friends, family, parents, other people in the industry, because none of us are experts in every arena. And I think what's really important is, I didn't know a lot about franchising. I didn't know what it was like to be a franchisor or how to support franchisees. But I'll digress a little bit. I grew up in Long Island, New York.
That's where I'm from, man.
Really? Yeah, from Syosset.
That is crazy. Yeah. I grew up in New Hyde Park, but I'm in Melville now. That's where our world headquarters is. But that's wild. That's crazy.
Yeah, crazy. So interesting story. Like a lot of my mom's side of the family was from upstate New York. And so as a kid growing up, we used to go up there for holidays and summers and stuff. And that was my first exposure to authentic buffalo wings. For the audience that doesn't know it, buffalo wings don't come from buffaloes. They started in a place called the Anchor Bar in 1964. And so from my upbringing, I just fell in love with the product. So I decided to head south. I went to school at the University of Florida, wanted kind of a change of scenery, so to speak. And the scenery was great. And so when I first got to campus, one of the things that was really interesting to me is I understood the importance of food delivery to college students. Typically, it was Domino's and maybe a local Chinese joint. But I understood I didn't have a car. I lived in the dorm. And so I always just thought like, man, I didn't really think about starting a buffalo wing delivery business, but I always thought that as a consumer, I really wanted it. So I think one message to the audience is always start with the consumer in mind, right? Like, what does the
Yep.
consumer need in your particular market or segment? So to get into the $500 investment after my second year of college, actually my third year of college, going into my senior year, I kept being drawn back to this whole delivery college campus thing. And I went home for the summer to work, and I started to develop a very simple business plan. What's funny is that the business plan was one piece of paper. It wasn't this 17-page PowerPoint. I think I said, listen, we want to sell the best wings. We want to have a variety of sauces. We want to be open late. We want to provide delivery to college students. And so I came up with this simple plan. I got back to campus that fall, started to share the idea with some good friends of mine. And one of my fraternity brothers, who ended up being my fraternity brother for 27 years, was like, Matt, I love this idea. And I asked Adam an important question. I said, Adam, how much money do you have to invest in this business? He goes, I don't have any money. I said, perfect. I don't have any money either. So this will be a perfect partnership. But when you live in a fraternity house, people don't know this. There is a full commercial kitchen. And so they have, the walk-in cooler and the freezers and the fryers and the grill. And typically by about 6:30 p.m. at night, that kitchen is locked, lights are turned off, equipment shut down, and it's not open until the next morning. So I convinced my fraternity president to kind of allow me access to the kitchen to kind of test out this model. And so the
Mm.
$500 really came from just scrounging up a few dollars between me and Adam. We had a telephone line installed in the frat house kitchen. We had some simple flyers printed out with a phone number only, not an address. And then we went to Sam's Club to buy some products. So the true story is we
Love it.
did start with $500. I'd like to take claim that I think we started the world's first ghost kitchen because no one knew where we were. They just know they could call this number and get authentic buffalo wings.
That's
So we
awesome.
did that. And, I think we started from very humble beginnings. We were not, killing it every night, but we were doing well and our business grew. And eventually, Adam and I both graduated. We tried to get traditional loans to open our first real storefront. We knew the fraternity house wasn't going to be a long-term play. And we got denied by every bank. We didn't have a lot of assets. We didn't have a lot of capital. And we finally went to the two people or the two groups of people that believed in us the most, which was our parents. And Adam borrowed 25 grand from his parents. I borrowed 25 grand from my parents. And we eventually opened our first storefront in 1994, just steps away from the University of Florida. So maybe that's a good pause to kind of have you say a few things, and I'll continue down the story of how we took it from one single location to 7 company-owned stores to a franchise of over 100 locations.
I love it. I love it. I'm just thinking. So how old were you when you started this?
21.
21. So,
Yep.
and obviously now, which we'll touch on. I don't want to jump too far, but it took a long time to build what you built, right? Like
27 years,
27 years.
which is
I
an
touch it.
amazing piece for people to really, everybody wants this rocket ship that you go from 1 to 100 in, a matter of years. But I always believed in just methodical, consistent growth.
Yep, and that's smart. I'm always very honest about this, but when I started franchising, I made a mistake because I thought that I could just magically turn people into great franchise owners, and I brought some people in that were not the right people, and I had a good amount of pain for quite a while of things I had to fix because the systems are great, but just the people weren't the right people, and business is not for everyone. But starting at 21, I started at 25, so you're even younger than me. If you can, if you can go back, like if someone were to give you some advice at 21, what do you wish someone would have told you?
Yeah, a few things. I'm glad you asked that question. Number one is you need to be really someone that is eager to learn or innovate through education, right? I really believe that there are so many people that have been successful or have made the mistakes like you and I, Josh, that we can learn from. I was very hard-headed. I'm like, I got this. I don't need help. I'm the expert. And you're hearing me say I a lot, right? So I think that was a real flaw of mine, of not really leaning into other people that could provide me some good guidance, even if I paid them or didn't pay them. The other thing that I realized is that I needed to build a team. This wasn't Matt's company, it was our company. Now, I had a great business partner. We did different things in the company, but I think Adam and I always viewed it as kind of a small ball mentality. And I think I really wish I would have brought in some guidance, some mentors, some coaches along the way, because ultimately I didn't know what I was doing. I figured out how to run a single restaurant, expand to multiple locations. But when I started franchising in 2001, we're going back 25 years ago, I didn't know anything about franchising. And so I think from that side, I did lean into the IFA and some other key things. But I just think that you need to really engage yourself in people that have done it before. And I do find that this industry is very welcoming and open
Yes.
to helping young, emerging, really good people in this industry.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'll tell you, I've been mentored by some of the greatest. Fred DeLuca used to mentor me back in the day. Before he passed, what a
Genius.
great guy. And I tell everyone this all the time. I've never met a successful person that I asked for help that has said no. Never. They always want to help, and it's just like a passion of theirs. Like, and people also go about this the wrong way. Like, I can't stand with someone like. Even now, it happens to me sometimes. People reach out and be like, "Can you be my mentor?" You should come prepared with questions and just reach out. Hey, I just wanted to reach out. I know you've had a lot of success. I want to ask you a question. If they're answering your questions, you're being mentored, right? And then you work on building that relationship. But I couldn't agree with you more. It's very, very important to surround yourself with the right people. And it's never I, it's always we. And you cannot do anything great without a great team behind you. And you got to really, put that infrastructure in place. But so you started at 21. Now, what point did you start franchising, and how did you know that you wanted to franchise?
Yeah, I think this is another great question you're asking. First of all, I'm not saying that people can't franchise their business after one or two locations, but I do believe you need to have proof of concept and not just, one home run location. So we had built 7 company-owned stores. Now the model was still very much the same: college markets, takeout delivery, open late. But what I really loved about it is we were starting to build this reputation, not only with the community in these campuses, but within our internal team. So my first play into franchising was really through my store managers, who really talked about, man, I would love to be able to own a wing zone. How do I get involved in owning one of these? And so that was my first kind of, light bulb moment. And then I started to do some research and reading about, what makes a successful franchise opportunity. And in my book, I talk a little bit about the 5 key metrics of success. But listen, at the end of the day, it begins and ends with unit level economics, right?
Yep.
The business has to be profitable. You have to provide your franchisee a roadmap of success. You do have to have proof of concept. You've got to have a great operating system. They got to believe in you. One thing that I learned quickly was that as a young franchise company, yes, they were buying into the opportunity, but they were really buying into you. Did they believe your vision, that you would really go to bat for them, that the relationship was genuine? I fell in love with the franchise industry because I liked those relationships. One thing I like to talk about is as a franchisor, if you're someone that loves to be patted on the back, you're in the wrong business, right?
100%.
Because ultimately, when a franchisee is successful, they want all the credit. I'm fine with that. I love to deflect awards, recognition, success to other people. But when things don't go well, you better have some thick skin, because it's going to test your leadership, your dedication to the brand, your relationships, and things like that. So I think for me, it was engaging with people that were really passionate about the brand, my store managers. And then eventually we scaled to people outside the company The last thing I want to share with this is your first dozen franchisees are really critical for how you build the foundation of your franchise company. And I know no one's going to be perfect. You're going to make some mistakes. I shouldn't have opened in this market, or I shouldn't have awarded this franchise to this person. But you better be hitting some doubles and triples out there, or it's tough to really scale because the validation of your initial franchisees are really that spark that you really need.
100%. 100%. Couldn't agree with you more on that. So, I've done my research obviously prior to our episode. Now, I thought this was pretty cool. Now, Wing Zone was built on delivery, right? So it was all about delivery, and you were like way ahead of time, like before like even DoorDash existed. So, like, how did you see that that was coming, and how do you feel like just that you were ahead of your time? Because that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was interesting. My core customer base were college students, and I like to share this story. It's funny. First of all, college students are incredibly lazy, right? And I think if you look at the DoorDash and Uber Eats customers these days, they're typically a younger generation that's like, just bring it to me.
Yep.
I also looked at the product we were selling was primarily a dinner or late night product. So it was really interesting. Our first dozen stores, we weren't even open for lunch. We'd open at 5 o'clock, we'd be open till midnight or 2 a.m. on the weekends. So college students typically don't eat breakfast. Their first meal is what most people say lunch, then they eat dinner, and then there's this additional late night meal. So I always felt that the delivery model was underserved. Now, I'm not going to say that that's true today because you can get anything delivered through
Yep.
Amazon, DoorDash, Uber Eats. But remember, roll back the clocks here. We're talking the 1990s, the 2000s. And so, from my perspective, we had a phenomenal business model to give people a delivery alternative to pizza. We had our own drivers, they had car toppers on.
Mm.
It was different than it was today. And I think it was a little bit of a monopoly, but technology hadn't advanced that far. I love to tell the story. I mean, we used to like, there was no GPS. You'd send the driver to, 1235 Shirley Street, and they had to look on the map, like, where's Shirley Street? And, I got to go
Mm.
here and there and some of those things. And we never knew where the drivers were, right? They'd go on their deliveries and hopefully they come back and go on the next delivery. So it was, I love to tell that story because people only think of modern technology like, oh, I put it in my GPS or I
Yep.
go on an app, but it didn't work that way.
I remember that. It's funny. I was talking to my kids about this the other day. I was like, because they're very into like hockey. We're big hockey guys, and I got two boys, and I was telling them, the way I would get news when I was growing up, I'd run out to my driveway and hope there was some cool news in a newspaper that was getting
That's right.
delivered on my driveway. You guys are looking, and my son's like looking at me. He's like, "Wait, what do you mean?" I was like, no, like people would deliver a newspaper and you go to the sports section and it wasn't like all the information you're looking at and there was no videos. Like you were either watching TV or you were getting, so it's like such a different world we live in today, which is wild now. But really cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. So everything. Everyone always touches on the good, right? Everyone's always talking about the good. I want to talk about the bad. Like,
Yeah.
what were like if you could pick one or two, like the roughest times for you when you were building the business? Was it getting into franchise? Was it bad franchisees? Was it a bad location? Like, you know, um, I was talking to someone recently about this, a very, very successful person, and I just feel like every successful person has some type of horrible pain or some type of setback that's just almost crushed them. And the reason they did not quit or fail is because they just, I always like to say business is about 90% mindset. Like you got to have the right mindset. You got to be resilient. So what was one or two things you could think about right off the top of your head that was just such a painful time in Wing Zone's history?
Yeah. Well, first one I'm going to talk a little bit about was really a challenging time for us because we had really started to expand aggressively, like going from opening 3 or 4 stores a year to 10 to 15 stores. And I think one thing that was painful for us was we started to really expand outside of our core base of the Southeast United States. And all of a sudden you start saying, well, this franchisee wants to open in Las Vegas or open in Des Moines, Iowa, or open in, New Jersey or something. And you start to think that you're invincible. Like we can open anywhere and do those things. I did not realize how challenging it would be to support our franchisees from a further distance. And then ultimately, we dealt with a heavy supply chain business. Maybe in your business, it's not as much. You're not like stuff can be shipped, but we were in the food business. So, how do I get product from A to B and still give them some buying power? So, I think for us, we started to open stores outside of our core region and we started to see a decline in sales, higher cost, less support. And so I started to really, and once you make that commitment to supporting a franchisee from far away, it affected our P&L, our costs, but we started to see those stores that were not in our, call it region, really struggle. And then ultimately they failed, or a lot of them failed. And so that is a really tough thing. I also want to share with people that franchising is not a guarantee of success. It is a probability or likelihood of success, right? So for me, I always felt that when a franchisee had opened and unfortunately failed, that that was a failure on us. I never looked at things like, let's blame the franchisee. Wrong franchisee. He didn't do it right. She didn't do it right. And so I always looked at it and said, okay, what did we do wrong? And how do we prevent that mistake again? So the regional growth for me, especially if you're in a food business or where you're having to provide franchisees products, is something that I instill in every brand that I've engaged with. Like, don't chase that big deal that's halfway across the country. That's number one. Number two is I I ended up hiring a lot of people based on their resume, right? And I think it was like, oh, look at their resume. And I always like was enamored with people like, oh, you worked for this big brand that had 1,000 stores or 5,000 stores. And we were not that, right? I think you have to be able to really understand, what people match your culture and where you are in your life cycle. At Wing Zone, if you were someone that was a vice president of operations or a director of operations, you better be able to wear like six hats.
Yep.
There wasn't someone to do things. And I think one lesson I learned was that I think for me, I didn't make the best hires. And I think that just is something innate of like whether you're someone that has a great ability to read people and understand where it's at. And so I think from my perspective, I really think that bringing someone onto your team or outsourcing people that really evaluate where you are and what your needs are. But through the years, Josh, we had some amazing success, and I like to say, and also some incredible challenges. Franchising for us was a roller coaster. There was
Yep.
some
Oh,
amazing ups, there were some downs.
yep.
And I think for us, it was just, the resilience to just learn from those mistakes and then not duplicate that again.
100%. I want everyone to really pay attention what Matt just said, because this is really spot on. And I can relate to what you're saying because I've had many situations like this. You got to make sure you're hiring the right people, and some people are not going to fit the culture. Some people could be, so high level that it doesn't make sense for you where you're at right now, and some people are not willing to get their hands dirty. And I really can relate with that. But that's really spot on what you said. So thanks for sharing. All right, so look, you've been in business almost 3 decades,
Yeah.
right? How did you know it was time for you to walk away? Like, because honestly, I actually want to know this for myself because I think about this. I'm nowhere near walking away right now, but I just want to like, what made you think like, all right, now's the time, and what is that like? Because I have a lot of successful friends that have sold their companies, take some time off. Every single one of them, after some in 3 months, some in 6 months, some in like a year or a little bit later, have gone back to something. And you said, at the beginning of this call, you're in a new position now, because this is just what we do, right? This is
Yeah.
just what we do. But how did you know, like, all right, now's the time? That was your baby, right? That was your baby.
It's another great question. I know I keep saying those things, but you're hitting all the key points that I would want to know if I was a listener here.
Yep.
First of all, I have mad respect for anyone that starts a business. I even have more respect for people that can build that business into something that's scalable. But I want to tell the audience that it is equally as challenging and hard to sell your company or business, right? So for me, it was a little bit of I was approaching the age of 50. It was still Adams, my partner, and I. We owned 100% of the company. We didn't have any outside investors. And I think for us, it was a little bit of, we used to have some really awesome conversations about, what do you see yourself doing in the course of the next 10, 20 years? And I think for us, we did not have a legacy plan. Ventured down the road of like private equity and bringing in some substantial capital to scale from, let's say, 100 plus locations to 500. But as I explored that, that was not us. We didn't want to answer to a board. We didn't want to be employees. And so I think it really became, let's go out there and see if we can find a good franchisor of another brand to really merge companies and do this together. The other thing, and we touched on it earlier, is, and this is hard for me to say, but I think Wing Zone lost its differentiation of being delivery, right? So we had to now, instead of owning delivery, we now needed to engage with the third party deliveries, the DoorDash, the Uber Eats. The other fact is that overnight, through just evolution, we had more and more competitors, right? If you roll back the clocks and just say 15 years ago, if you wanted wings delivered, you can get them from your pizza place or Wing Zone. Ours were far superior. Now you can get them delivered from dozens of places, if not hundreds. So I always felt that we had a great run and it was time for us to take some chips off the table. And so we went through that process, and that process is not a simple process. First of all, for anyone in the audience that's looking to potentially exit a business, you have to disclose everything. There's nothing to hide, right? If you've had success, failures, bad hires, your financial position, your cash position, obviously you're going to sign some document that protects confidentiality, but you've got to kind of be willing to share everything and open up the hood of the car, so to speak. But going back to it, I think it was really, what did Adam and I want to do with the remainder of our professional lives? And so I always felt that I wanted to do something different. I really wanted to kind of help other entrepreneurs and maybe build a brand again. So it was more of a personal decision than a business decision. And then lastly, I'll be honest with you, the valuations of franchise companies were continuing to increase.
Yep.
And so we really felt like we had done very well financially through our business and things like that. But this was a way to really reward ourselves for the 27 years that we put into this.
Yeah.
So I exited in 2021. I think it's really important that what you mentioned was like, okay, I signed a 1 year agreement to stay on board with the new owners. And after about 6 months, I was like, I'm out of here. Like, you guys don't need me. You're doing your own thing, and I'm going to kind of do my own thing. And, I think from that time, I did really focus on being that coach mentor for people in the franchise industry. And I really enjoyed it. I got to be exposed to different franchise industries, health and wellness, child enrichment, home services. And just of recently, about a month ago, I took the CEO position at a company called Epic Wings. So I'm back in the wing business after a 5 year hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
And really excited about it. Family owned, 4 decades, 33 locations, all in Southern California. And I'm really excited to kind of do it again because it's in my blood. And I want to, I think I'm a really good leader. And I just love the passion of trying to grow a company again.
Love it. I love it. Well, I wish you nothing but success, and I know success is just going to be surrounding you. So it's coming. It's coming your way, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. Well, let's before we do some rapid fire closer out questions, I want
Sure.
to. What is one thing you think every founder gets wrong in franchising?
I believe that people get enamored by the number of units and how fast people grow, and they feel like they've got to compete with, who's it annoys me so much when I meet someone in franchising and the first question is like, how many units you got?
Hmm.
Who gives a crap? Like,
You
I don't
know,
care.
not to cut you off, but it's so funny. I was literally at the beginning of the episode thinking this. You said you brought it to 100 locations. And I know people are like, I got 4,000 locations. I got 3,000 locations. I was literally thinking this because I will tell you something. What would you rather have that you're listening today? Would you rather have 100 locations doing over $1 million a year, or have a 2,000 locations, one's doing 20,000, 100,000? Bigger is not better.
It
It's
isn't.
about quality, and I'm so happy you said that because I was literally thinking that when you said that, and that's a very valid thing. Because I'm not going to lie, I'll be very honest with you. I was like that. I was like, I want to get 3,000 locations, and then I changed my perspective once I started like seeing like it's not about that. Like it's about the quality, and if you're bringing in quality people and you're having quality results, that's going to drive the business.
It is. The other thing I just think is like, just slow down sometimes, right? Like it is a race, right? But it is not 100-yard dash. Just take it easy from that perspective. The other thing, and I just want to make sure the audience understands this, especially if you're a franchisor, is your capital plan is critical. We were not great at Wing Zone. We were self-funded. We would make decisions based on whether we had the money to do it, whether it was a hire, an investment in technology. I really wish we would have had a key capital partner that we would have peeled off 20, 30% of the business to really give us that ability. I don't think anyone here needs, if you're a franchisor looking to scale, or you really like, bring on the right capital partner to really help you kind of make those decisions where the investment is done properly with a lot of thought. And I think that's always, sometimes people want to hold on 100% of their equity. We were like that. That was a mistake. I
So
really, we would have been
you and I
so
are
much
really.
more successful if we would have just brought in a capital partner and maybe they own 30% of the company. Great.
Yeah, you and I are very aligned, man. I got to tell you, because I was the same way, and actually, we're in the middle of doing a raise right now. It's the first time I've ever raised money. I've been
Smart.
bootstrapped since I started, and I just said to myself, like, you start looking at Musk, Bezos, you start looking at all these. They don't own 100%. None of them own 100%. Like, you can't get to that next level at the rate you want to get unless you bring in that capital. So that's another very valuable piece that you're touching on. Super, super valuable.
Yeah.
All right, so we're getting towards the end of the episode. I don't like to make them too long, so I want people to, be
I
able
agree
to
with you.
get the
I agree.
episode.
Listen, I have a rule in business too. When I have meetings, they're 45-minute meetings.
I
Because
love that.
after 45, I've lost everyone, including myself.
I agree, man. I agree. And most of my episodes are under 35 minutes, so people like them. So, all right, so rapid fire
Yep.
questions, right? One word. What describes your entrepreneur journey?
Uh, right here. I'm going to see. Hopefully, the audience can see this. This is my mascot, the rhino. You got to
Love
have
that.
thick skin.
Love
You
that.
got to
Love
have
that.
thick skin, man. I'll
You
tell you, if
you do.
everyone, I'll just say this quickly. I know that it's a one-word answer, but man, so many times there was this thought of giving up, right? But you got to have thick skin.
When you walk into my world headquarters, the first thing you see on the wall is these big, they're like about, I think each letter is like 7 feet. They're huge. And it says, "We don't quit." That's the first thing you see because we don't ever quit. You don't ever tap out. There's never a plan B. Plan A is the only plan. People need to understand that. As soon as you get that backup plan in your mind, you're done. You're absolutely done. And I know you can relate to this. And I say this all the time. It's very true. Success leaves clues. It always works out. You know how many times I've been in situations where I needed money and I made it happen? Like I make it happen
Yeah,
every single time.
that's
I'm
right.
telling you, people say I'm a magician. No, everyone in business who's successful understands this. So thick skin, love it. I love the rhino. Okay, next one, last one here. Best piece of advice you ever got, and who gave it to you?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I know the advice was slow down and stop worrying about the number of locations. And it
Love that.
was, a mentor of mine in the industry that had been a successful franchisor because he heard me at events like, oh, we've got this many locations, and I was almost defending it like, yeah, but we're going to open more. We're going to open another 50 or 100. He's like, stop. Just
Yeah.
just be real. It's okay. Like not every they're not going to judge you based on the number of locations. If you're a franchisor out there and you have 5 locations, be damn proud of it. I
Yeah,
got
I
five
agree.
locations and you know what? They're crushing it.
Love it. I agree. I agree. That's spot on. And I want to just circle back to one thing. We are just talking about success leaves clues. I was questioning for a long time if I should be bringing in money to really blow this thing up. And I just got my clue because Matt here just told me that that's a very smart thing to do. And so now I just got that verified. That's how I look at things. Like you have to be very self-aware. And that was my sign from that person upstairs that, yeah, what you're doing is the right move. So I appreciate that. I like that. Now, guys, listen, I know you enjoyed this episode. You have to make sure, Matt, your book's out right now from Frat
It
House to
is.
Frat.
Yep.
Okay,
Amazon. It's one thing I love to share. 99 cents on Kindle. I didn't do this to make money, but get people to order it. You can order the hardcover, soft cover, any of those things, but it's a great read. I'm being honest. You're going to learn some things. You're going to laugh. And just hear my story and just some of the things. I feel like it was a really honest story of my voyage from frat house to franchising.
I love it. So, guys, pick up his book. Obviously, anything you could do to, share that book would be great because we want that book to keep growing. And, it's all about helping people. And the more people you help, the better things are going to come on your way. So, with that said, where can people, find out more about you, Matt? Maybe they want to contact you or, learn more about your story. You have a website? Where can you share?
I do. Yeah, I have my own website, mattfriedman.com. Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn. And you mentioned something earlier about people reaching out and asking for advice. I love when people reach out. I do. I think I really do also appreciate if someone's like, I have a specific question or challenge and I'd love to pick your brain on it rather than, hey, I just want to, get on a, 2-hour call with you. I will take your call and I will respond to you, but let's jump into some real stuff about what you're going through.
I love that. Now, people who are listening to this, because I know there's not a lot of action takers out there. The action takers will always be the money makers. Now, Matt's offering something very nice. Now, the question is, how many of you are actually going to take him up and reach out to him with a question? I don't mean reach out to him to bother him because he's probably not going to get back to you, but I mean reach out with an actual question of something that's going on in your business right now that he can help you with. That's a very, very important thing. You reminded me of a quick story, and then we're going to wrap up. I was on a call with someone. I'm not going to throw his name out there, but very successful, sold for billions of dollars. He was on a Zoom call and gave out his email. There was, I think, it was some crazy number, like 15,000 people were on this call. How many people you think actually emailed him, Matt? Me.
An embarrassing number.
I was
like how
the
low?
first one. I was the first one to email him. I asked him weeks later. He said, "Josh, 4 people emailed me." He gave out his email. The guy's a billionaire. He has things that he can teach you to help you. And no, you got to take action. So listen to what Matt just said. Don't reach out to him to play with him or waste his time. Reach out to him if you have someone that you really need help with because he could help you. And Matt, I thank you so much for jumping on. I really appreciate it. This episode was great. People are going to love it. They're going to learn from it. Guys, as you know, please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. Until next time, fuel your drive. See ya. Legend. Do you know my name? My name is Legend.